Cocktail Conversations, candid insights from startup founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders from around the globe.
So I know you did a bunch of stuff abroad, and maybe tell me a little bit about like what you were doing, and then also what that taught you and has helped you along the way.
Yeah, so I spent almost a decade, about 10 years abroad. I spent a year in India, and then I followed that up with 4.5 years in Paris, and then I spent another 4 years in Jakarta, Indonesia. And I had it was a pretty robust experience, to say the least, because I had lots of different roles. So in India and Indonesia, I was basically running mergers and acquisitions for GD, which is Group Danone, a huge French conglomerate. And so, buying companies, trying to figure out ways to penetrate Asia. But France, that experience was totally unique in that I went there, but the reality is if you're going to survive in France, you need to speak French. I remember I went to...
Did you speak French?
Yeah, comme vache espagnol. It's like a Spanish cow. So I remember, there's this guy who I owe my career to in a lot of ways, Antoine Rubu, who I, in a very serendipitous way, had met, and then who had invited me on this journey, kind of with him as he was building Group Danone. And I said, Antoine, this is not going to work out. I really need to learn to speak French. And he goes, okay, what do you want to do? And I said, how about sales? He says, but you can't speak French. I said, haha, that's right. So we ended up agreeing that I could do a merchandising job. And he asked me where I wanted to do it. And I said the furthest spot from Paris. I pulled out the map. And I said Perpignan, where Loic, if you guys know Loic from the web, is from. And he said, okay, go do it. So I went there, and the first job I had there was driving a forklift for a couple of weeks in the factory. That was fun to learn that. Mm-hmm. But the second job I got was as a yogurt merchandiser. And still probably the best job I've ever had, and the job that taught me the most about the person I think hopefully I try to be, in that it's very humbling, right, to take a big step back like that. And I wore a little uniform, had my name written on it, Tony. The hours were from 2 in the morning until 8:30 in the morning.
Wow.
It required cleaning shelves, resetting shelves. But the beauty of it is that the guy who runs the dairy category in a grocery store most likely does not speak English, right? And it was an amazing experience for me. And it taught me the value of taking control, because it's not something that anybody would have put on my roadmap. Mm-hmm. But it was at the time the most rewarding thing, and probably still the most rewarding moment in my life, because I got to the other side, right? And I depended on myself to take control of my own kind of destiny, if you want. I didn't think of it in those terms, but that's in reality what I was doing. And so I think that was a really special, one of those special experiences. You wouldn't find it on my LinkedIn page, or but it's formative for me.
So that's something that's not necessarily on your resume?
There's a lot of things on my resume.
What else? What else? I want to hear what else isn't on your resume.
I've been a janitor. I've worked in a factory on a glue machine. I came from a fairly, humble, small farming community in Indiana. My son Za has been there. He can attest to it. It's incredibly small, 1 or 2 stoplights. I have, I've had the embarrassing job at 17 of, stocking the tampons in the store.
Wait, specifically the
Just
tampons?
that section?
There's like a tampon guy.
You were the guy?
I got to do the tampons, the diapers, the condoms,
Okay, so
and a
all
few
that
of other
stuff.
things.
That whole section.
Yeah,
All
that
right.
kind of section.
All the embarrassing shit. All right, gotcha.
But yeah, it was the stuff that nobody else wanted to be seen by their friends. I've delivered drugs, but in a legal way, to the retirement community. I've been a Little League umpire. I've been a basketball coach. I've been a camp counselor. I've done a lot of things, and in each one of those experiences, I've taken a lot of incredible lessons from them. And I think the only way I would summarize it is what my wife once said to me is, it's a contact sport. and life is very much a contact sport. And it's important to get out there in your community and mix it up and to be a part of it, and you'll learn things. It's an amazing journey if you do that.
So each one of those probably taught you different lessons along the way.
Definitely.
All right, let's talk about startups. You've done a bunch of them. How many of you started up here?
Oh, God, I don't know. A lot of companies.
A lot of companies.
That I've been involved with, yeah.
You've been involved with a lot. What was the first that kind of got you hooked in startup land?
Well, I got lucky because a couple of the first things that I had the privilege of investing in were, incredibly successful. Post Communications, which is a company back in the era, became close to $1 billion company, and then with a company called Danger, which was Andy Rubin's first company,
right?
And that was the first smartphone, so that was a real privilege to be an investor and be involved in that. But I think interestingly for me, probably the most important investment that I made that has kind of followed me or helped propel me into my next this decade that I'm kind of concluding, was a small little company called Oddpost. Does anybody remember Oddpost?
Show of hands.
So, yes.
A few people.
So Oddpost is a fairly important company because it was one of the first companies to expose the application layer of DHTML, which became known as AJAX, which is the interactive web in a lot of ways. And what I learned from Ethan and Ian and Tony Schneider, who's now my partner at True, was this is 2002, 2003, and they weren't doing a startup the way that the venture community kind of thought of startups.
Right.
They were doing it the way that Evan Williams in parallel was doing it with Blogger, and a handful of companies when everybody had kind of said the web is dead and it moved on. For those of us that were there and kind of stayed the course, you could see the magic happening, right? It was very much underground. You never knew if it was going to be appreciated, but you could definitely see the one reality was that all these services were growing, right? Usage was growing, and that's the key thing, right? And so these guys, Ethan and Ian, they basically worked out of a library for a long time.
Really?
They didn't raise any capital. I think they sold a car, surfboard. I don't know what else.
So they had some harsh realities along the way to keep it going.
But they really did it in kind of the old-fashioned way. But they had a team of passionate people, and they were burning almost no capital. It was crazy how they were working. And I remember thinking like, oh, wow, this is a new era, right? Because the cloud was starting to happen, and your ability to tap into infrastructure and the cost associated with starting a company were evaporating. Right there. I mean, I could see it. I mean, I'm not a brain surgeon, but I could see what they were building, and it wasn't costing a lot. And I thought, wow, maybe I could do that too, So that was the most fun and enjoyable company that still to date I think I invested in.
So that you got into that company, it was early on, and they ended up getting acquired by Yahoo.
They did, in all of Yahoo Mail.
Right. So that's probably the first Ajax-y mail product.
Definitely one of the first.
Right. And then Google came along later and did it too. Okay. And so that was that launch story is actually in the book, and then a couple years later you started something else.
Well, then I started, so in 2003 and 2004, I think for those of us who are around, I can't, underscore enough, and I'm sure you can sympathize with me, it sucked to be an investor. I had been lucky and fortunate in that I'd had some really great outcomes, but it doesn't mean it was a fun environment to be an investor. And I just remember thinking like, maybe I can start a company. So at the same time, we were also going to start a new fund. We had a 4-month period where I started Sphere with Tony Schneider, who was my co-founder, and a couple other guys. We started True Ventures, which now has over basically $1 billion, a little bit more than that, under management. And I met this kid along the way that I'd been talking to for a while, who was a precocious 18-year-old in Houston named Matt Mullenweg. Who was starting WordPress, and I was just privileged to kind of get to ride in the sidecar with Matt. But that was a 4-month period in 2004, and that's a pretty good 4-month period.
Yeah. That's pretty fascinating. So all in that short period of time to see that trajectory. Okay, so Sphere was the blog search engine. You launched that. Tell me a little bit about that launch, because I know part of the chapter 6, if you have the book, is kind of Tony's story, and we're going to talk through a little bit of it. I don't want to take all the details, but I know part of it was that was when blogging was kind of getting going, and Sphere was a blog search engine, and then ultimately you changed the path of what they were doing. But you told us even something even back in the green room here a second ago about how that launch was interesting and what you saw and how you kind of got that out there. So can you share that a little bit?
Yes. So I think so. What was happening, and Ryan knows this because he was living it incredibly closely. All of a sudden, nobody, like the bloggers, you could see it happening, right? And there was more and more, and I was privy through WordPress to kind of see the numbers in a lot of ways, and the bloggers were definitely increasing just the readership and the viewership was just going up, and you could see that. And I remember thinking this is the group of people that I should reach out to and talk to, not the traditional journalists, because they would actually take my call. And the thing I did was, in hindsight, is I realized I treated the Mike Arringtons of the world and all of these bloggers, I treated them with a level of professionalism and respect that you would treat a New York Times or a Wall Street Journal reporter. And I would, go to see them, and I would debrief them on my products, and they would end up writing about it. And subsequently, they became my partners, right, in a lot of ways, because they would use Sphere on their blogs and for doing contextually related articles. And I don't think I've never really mentioned it in public, but I don't think we also get enough credit or have ever gotten the credit for having done something pretty amazingly different, and that was creating a brand, almost like Intel Inside, is creating a brand that was living on top of these other brands. We were the first widget really that was living at the bottom of a page. Think about it today now, all those icons and things that you can do. That's what we were doing at Sphere. You would click it and it would open up, and it had this sexy roll up, and it would show you contextually related articles. And at one point in time, I think we had we just had a crazy amount of the top blogs in the world, and and
not just
big
blogs,
publishers.
though. Yeah.
Washington Post, New York Times, CNN, Reuters, everybody.
Yeah.
And it was just it was a really fun moment. So that's the way we launched.
Right. So fast forward
Sphere.
then to your next thing. You end up selling Sphere to AOL. Your next thing, you kind of incubated well.
Yeah. So the next thing was about .me, and I thought I was kind of wondering if I wanted to just be an investor. I've always continued to be an investor throughout this period. And did I want to just devote full time to True? Did I want to do a startup? Did I want to do both? And it's a bit of a crazy life to do both. But I felt like that kind of appealed to me, the most. And I thought that was how it's going to be the most successful at both jobs. And so with About.me, there's a little bit of dumb luck involved here. But good thing is, if you pay attention to dumb luck, sometimes you can find your way to really fortunate luck. And so what had happened because of Sphere and the other things that I was fortunate to be involved with, the people that had supported me in the past obviously wanted to support me again going forward on About.me, and my team, my co-founder Ryan Freitas and Tim Young. And so raising money from that group of people was easy, but I'd met a lot of other people, and my co-founders had met a lot of other people that we wanted to have involved, and we couldn't necessarily figure out a way. We just wanted to raise $400,000. We didn't really want to raise a bunch of money. And so we just started asking people if they wanted to be an advisor. I mean, kind of in an almost haphazard, flippant way. And then I think I woke up one day and I realized we had 26 advisors for a 4-person team.
So there were more. The advisors outnumbered the people. That's fine. I mean,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Your team. I mean, it was you were outnumbered. So Veronica was one of your advisors.
Veronica, I do remember that Veronica is still one of our advisors.
Right, exactly.
So in the beginning of that cycle, it was just happening. But then I realized, oh, this is kind of cool to have this group of people around the table. And there were people like Ryan and Veronica who we wanted to have involved. And so it's kind of that lesson from Sphere of get in your car, drive down, go see these people, right? Go meet with them in their location, treat them with a level of respect, debrief them on your product, tell them why you're passionate about it, why you would like them to be involved, and hopefully you can get their support. And so we were very fortunate in this case to have these two as part of our 26. But the thing then I realized was like, wow, our advisors have like 20 million Twitter followers. It was crazy. And I remember thinking, even if half of those were bots, they had 10 million. And if half of them were overlapped, we had 5 million. And the beauty of this is that you could launch a product in a way that none of us had ever imagined. And that is, we could move outside of the tech bubble by actually leveraging the tech bubble. So there was a great post that was written by a very fantastic venture capitalist I won't mention, but it was called 53,651 or something like that, right? And basically what it was an article critiquing startup culture that was catering to the TechCrunch crowd. And that was the number of people that were RSS subscribers of TechCrunch.
Right.
And the basic thing was you never cross over the chasm by doing that. And what Twitter unleashed was by going to the deepest, in the most inner circle of that 56,351, what happened is that your message was getting amplified. And the people in India, the people in Indiana, and the people in Silicon Valley all follow Om Malik, right? And Veronica's got her set of followers also. So you're able to launch a product from day one in a way that is magical and allows you to really cross over. And a product like About.me is really ideally suited for scale horizontally.
I'd love to hear your take on this, the launch and advising.
Well, I was just going to say, I think the special thing about About.me in particular is that it's so organic with what we do day to day online.
Yeah.
So for someone like me that has so many different spaces online that I am, working on or talking to, or different social networks, different platforms, having that one place that I can kind of direct someone to get all of that. And also being able to put About.me in your email signature and having it be your link on Twitter, it just becomes this totally organic thing where people are going to find it. You don't have to be tweeting about it. You don't have to be talking about it constantly for people to discover it.
Right.
So I have a question. How many people have, and be honest, how many people have a link of something in their email signature? All right. How many people, how many people do not have a link of something to a page of something in your email signature? Quite a few people. That is crazy. That is crazy. Are you really going to let Google define you? I love Google. There's not a bigger fanboy of Google than me. But you're really going to let Google define you? That's kind of crazy, right? Why should you let Google define you? Why should you? I don't think Twitter is. These are all services that are on the front screen, the home screen of my phone. Right? So these are all services I love, right? But I wouldn't want to be defined as the sum of my tweets.
Right.
I say stupid stuff. I remember once I said something 9 months ago, I wish smoking were good for you. It was late at night. I don't smoke, but I had a cigarette. When I was 20, I probably smoked some cigarettes, right? It was just fun. Made me feel youthful, made me feel whatever. It's 2 a.m. I was a little drunk, tweeted it out. Oh my God, the shitstorm that unleashed the next morning with the cancer, the esophagus, oh my God, my dad died of, I'm so sorry, God, the backlash, people unfollowing me. But so I wouldn't want whatever I say in Twitter to be how you think of me. It's a piece of who I am, but it's not who I am. I'm not defined by my professional experiences or, my accomplishments, right? I'm a much more, hopefully, interesting and balanced person than that. And I'm not going to be defined by you, my social graph. right? And I'm not going to be defined by Google. The only person that should define you is yourself. And that gets to the core spirit of what we're trying to do with About.me and why everybody should have a link to something in their email signature. Ideally, it would be an About.me page, but you should absolutely have a link to something in your email signature. It's just crazy in this day and age that you wouldn't. You know, and it's a bit, as I said, it's a bit of a disservice to me, the recipient of your email, to do what we all do numerous times a week, cut and paste, go into Google, and then try to figure out who this person is, right? Like, why are you making me do that work? I don't want to do that work. Do you? No. So that's why you should have a page.
All right. So those stories and some of the things that you learned through that are in the book. I want to talk about one harsh reality, though. You talked about, I think last time you guys saw each other, you were pretty stressed out. You said one day out of the year, you get super stressed out. It's like everything kind of goes the wrong direction, right? You did say this.
Yeah, I did say that. I think if you ask my son, he'll tell you I get stressed out every day.
Yeah, okay. But let's say that there's that one day where, you know, things just aren't, you're hearing everything's happening. It's that storm, perfect storm. Tell me, how do you deal with that harsh reality? Because I want, you know, it's you always hear about the sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns. Like, let's talk about the hard part.
Well, I think I'm naturally a fairly positive, optimistic human being, and I think that's why when that occasionally happens, which is so rare in my case, where you feel like you've just been hit by a tsunami. I always imagine this is what people that maybe suffer from depression must feel like, right? It's just like, it's just debilitating.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, once a year, once every 2 years, like for a day.
Right.
You know, I've just had a really shitty day.
Yeah.
And I think what I've learned is that it's very easy to focus on the negative in anything. And it's kind of even sexy, you know? It's kind of fun, you know, to watch your own train wreck a little bit. You can really, you know
Would you
what I
agree
mean?
with that, Veronica?
It's a
No.
well, I just saying, you know, it's a little, you can get wrapped up in it, and what's that all about? And I think what I've just learned is to really kind of figure out where it is we want to go, right? Mistakes happen in my team. Sometimes we have conflicts. Sometimes there's all kinds of things that happen in the interpersonal dynamics of a team. But the most important thing is that you get people to focus on where do they actually want it to be. You know, where do I actually want to be, and where do I want my service to be, and what do I want to believe, all right? And I know About.me today is a really small service, even though it's incredibly large. But it's a small service in the scheme of things. But I really believe, right, and what I'm focused on is that every person in the planet should actually have a page, right? That's the focus. And so in all of these times when you have a bit of a tough moment, like when I was in France, and I had that realization that I'm kind of screwed, right? It's like, okay, figure it out, point to where is the outcome that you want. And my outcome that I wanted more than anything at that point was to speak French. That was it. That's what I wanted. And I didn't want to speak it like a bilingual person. I just wanted to be able to get by and speak French. And so I figured out a way to make that happen. And I think in life you find all kinds of obstacles, and you should just you know, I don't know, just do it.
Focus on the
figure it
prize.
out.
Yeah, okay. So focus on that goal.
Yeah.
You're goal-oriented. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. We've got a little bit more time, then we're going to open up to Q&A. I know we kind of didn't get a chance to talk about this as much, but let's briefly talk about investing. You've invested in how many companies?
I have no idea.
See, so quite a few.
Yes. And I think we're now at a stage where none of us at True think of it as our individual investments.
Right.
I just think we as a team are investing.
Right.
And even though half the investments, well, the good ones I always know about, right? But yeah, I think, yeah.
So some
Hundreds.
of the ones that come to mind are Fitbit.
Certainly MakerBot, Blue Bottle Coffee, for those of you who are
Got
fans
some
of
Blue Bottle right
Coffee.
here, huh?
Yeah, it's
Wait
pimping
a
the
minute. I
brand.
think this is one too, potentially.
No?
Oh,
No,
okay.
that's just my own
Just
bag.
your bag. Okay.
WordPress, obviously, 3D robotics,
Right.
companies that you haven't heard of that are enormous. Puppet, a massive open source company, sysadmin tools. Brightroll, another massive company. You know, we just, you know. We've
So
been lucky to work with
For
a
the
lot of
audience
smart
here,
people.
how would they approach you if they've got something that they might be interesting? What's the best way to approach you?
Well, I think the thing that works. So all of us go through periods of being super active and sometimes
Right.
pulling back.
And you're in a pullback phase right now.
I'm definitely in a pullback phase right this minute.
Yeah.
But I think the best way still is for us to be introduced by other founders within our portfolio.
Okay.
That's what's the most meaningful. And when there's 500 founders in a portfolio, you know, we're in Silicon Valley, you're all here, you figure out a way to network through one of them.
Right.
And I also think that it's, when you do that, the founders in our portfolio have a good sense of what each partner and then what the firm is interested in, and they know when it's not a fit, right? So it also saves you a lot of time and energy.
Okay.
And I think that's the key thing for getting in touch.
Okay. Let's open it. Like, we're going to do a little group Q&A here, and then actually have your questions ready. We can open it up to Q&A. Wanted to talk a little bit more about the About.me stuff and actually your involvement and like how that all started out.
Yeah, so Tony reached out to me, and I was one of the people that he drove to come and see in my office in South San Francisco, which was really, impressive to get you out of the city down there. And he showed me the product, and I just instantly, it clicked for me. And I get offers to advise companies every so often, and for me, it really has to be something that works for me.
Right.
It has to be something that I recognize as something that I would use, and that the people that I talk to online would use,
Right.
and it has to be that kind of fit. And it just made total sense. And so I jumped in for sure.
Okay. I just got a text saying that I'm off course.
Uh-oh.
We should have done another mixologist situation back here. Who wants to take that? Tony, you got this one?
I don't
Okay.
have this.
Veronica, do you want to do it or do you want me to do it?
Do we have to go do another one?
Yeah,
All
I
right,
think
I'm
so.
in.
We've got to keep
Sure.
teaching.
Hello, my friend. All right, so are we making...
I'm actually going to do two here since we skipped the first one.
I know. I'm totally off course. I talk too much, or we all talk too much.
So what I'm going to do here is an old fashioned, which is actually
Tony's
it's just
favorite.
a teaspoon
It's a good
of
drink.
sugar. Take your cherry, your orange, a couple dashes of bitters. You muddle it all together.
Muddle. How do you muddle?
That,
Oh, that's muddling.
I guess the action is exactly how the word sounds.
Okay.
I mean, if somebody said the word muddling, I would
say
imagine somebody
smooshing?
doing this. Smooshing?
Smooshing?
I think that'd be more appropriate.
okay, good.
You add 2 ounces of Bullet bourbon or your whatever preferred bourbon. Give it a little ice,
It's really hot in here. More ice.
a little stir, and then there you go. That one's ready to go.
Takers?
Anyone? Anyone? This
No,
guy
Tony's...
right here.
all right. Old-fashioned for you?
All right, there it is. Enjoy.
I give
right,
you
what
guys
do
a
we
tip.
have
How many
next?
people like
The
old
next
fashions?
one
Hi,
is-
old-fashioned fans.
I'll
Okay,
give
so
you-
we can
I'll
make
give you
some
a
more of
tip.
those here in a little bit. We're gonna do Q&A, and then
Wait,
we're
hold on. I'm going to give them a tip. I'm going to tell them
Oh.
a spot to go.
Oh,
If you haven't been to Locanda, has the most amazing old-fashioned flight.
really?
Yeah, it's crazy. 3 of them, but they're small. You should go check it out. It's worth going there just for that. I'm not an investor. I have no economic interest.
Just go get a good old-fashioned.
Yes,
There
I've
you
had
go.
a
You
few.
heard it here. All right, so that's the old-fashioned. What's the other drink?
The next one is my favorite. It's the orange mojito.
Oh, the mojito.
2 or 3, actually let's do it in the big cup. Make it look nice. 2 or 3 slices of orange. I want to take a few mint leaves, give them a quick smack, open the veins up. It lets the
Right.
oil and everything
It's a
come
little more
out.
violent. Yep.
Couple of teaspoons.
Do
of
you smell the
sugar.
mint over there, Veronica? Do you okay, yeah. It's
Very aromatic.
Okay.
Yes. I'm wafting right now.
okay.
That's a scientific term,
Yeah,
wafting?
it is, I think.
It is actually.
Yeah.
I wasn't joking.
I know.
That was real.
Take 4 or 5 limes and you muddle it all together.
Muddle.
Or as we like to say, smush.
Smush.
About how many schmushes to a cup?
Until it's aromatic and juicy.
Did you waft for test?
Would you like to waft for test? Do you think that's fast?
It's smushed, yeah.
And you take 2 ounces of your favorite type of rum.
That was a lot more than 2 ounces.
I hope I don't get pulled over
That was a
on
gallon.
the way home. I'm like,
Yeah.
Shake it all together.
Yeah.
And then into the cup it goes.
There you go.
Most people put all the orange and everything else in there. I like to just garnish it with the fresh orange and everything. That way it looks a little prettier and you don't look like you have a cup full of mashed fruit.
There you go.
There we go.
All right, there's the
orange
mojito.
Her pants shot right
All right.
up.
Let's hear it for
All
our
over that.
mixologist. And Veronica, great job. All right.